From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 6, streaming now.
And now at 6, a big increase in new COVID-19 cases in Indiana. The mark the state never wanted to cross, but now has.
And we are certainly prepared to respond again.
With the number of COVID cases rising across the state, we are working to find out how hospitals here locally are preparing for a possible influx of patients. In Democracy 2020, we are focusing on the race for the White House. We talked to the presidential campaigns and how they view Indiana's role in this election.
One more cold night in the 7-day forecast, and we'll also zero in on several opportunities for rain.
Thanks for watching WRTV News at 6 on this Friday. I'm Amanda Starantino. For the first time, the state reports more than 2,000 additional COVID-19 cases, making it another single-day record. The Indiana Department of Health confirms 2,328 additional cases of the coronavirus. However, the health department noted that the total includes about 300 cases whose reporting was delayed due to a technical issue over the past few days. A total of 143,495 people in Indiana have been diagnosed with COVID-19 since March. And the state reports 22 additional deaths, so 3,654 Hoosiers have died with the coronavirus since the pandemic began. One bit of good news, the number of people hospitalized has decreased a bit. As of yesterday, 1,311 Hoosiers were in the hospital either with COVID or similar symptoms that could turn out to be COVID. On Wednesday, 1,355 people in the state were hospitalized. And with overall case numbers rising here in Indiana, we are working to find out how local hospitals are preparing for a possible influx of patients. WRTV's Megan Sanctorum checked in with Franciscan St. Francis Health and IU Health to find out what they're seeing here locally.
It may be quiet outside of these two major hospitals in central Indiana, but inside, health leaders are hard at work. They're keeping a close eye on the number of COVID-19 cases and creating plans to make sure they can safely care for anyone who may need it.
Based on what we learned from the spring, when we sort of had this first surge, we were prepared at that time for an incredibly large volume of patients.
At IU Health's downtown campuses right now, they're not seeing an increase in COVID patients.
What we continue to do is watch the Department of Health's data around COVID-19, and throughout the state in the different counties, it is highly variable.
In fact, head a little south, and leaders at Franciscan Health say they are seeing more patients.
We have definitely seen an uptick. We were actually down to a pretty low level about 2 weeks ago. We've more than doubled since then, our inpatient.
But it's not all bad news. He says the number of people requiring a ventilator hasn't increased, and most patients are not getting as critically ill as they were earlier in the pandemic. But if that changes, they'll be ready.
Whether we need to cohort patients, dedicate specific units for the exclusive use of COVID. We've created a lot of extra rooms that have negative airflow capabilities. So I think we've certainly stockpiled more PPE to prepare for a surge.
IU Health also saying they're prepared.
What we're doing downtown on the Methodist Hospital and University Hospital campuses is looking at the spaces we have available and making sure we can convert them at any time to be whatever level of care or whatever type of space we need.
She says they've also looked at sourcing additional staffing. Both hospitals say they continue to learn more about the virus and the best way to treat COVID patients.
And we feel much more confident in our ability to know as things coming in, what to do, how to treat them, and how to handle them.
Working for you, Megan Sanctorum, WRTV.
And recently, President Donald Trump has mentioned the idea of herd immunity to combat the coronavirus. So we went to a local expert today to see if he thought herd immunity was a viable option to stop the spread of the coronavirus. First, what is herd immunity? Dr. Nicholas Barros with IU Health says it is when 60 to 70% of people within a population are protected from a certain infection because of prior exposure or through vaccination. He says in the case of COVID-19, 220 million Americans would have to be infected or vaccinated against the disease to achieve herd immunity, because that would be 60 to 70% of the population. But with a 1% fatality rate, he says the cost of herd immunity would be too high.
Now, if we're talking about herd immunity from infection per se, not vaccinations, that would be 220 infections, and with a rate of a case fatality rate of about 1%. That is 2,100,000 Americans that would die. So the use of herd immunity to achieve control of the epidemic is theoretically plausible, but the cost of it it's exceedingly high. And so that's one of the reasons why, as a public health, cannot take a policy of allowing 2,100,000 people to die when we can prevent that with public health measures, including masks and social distancing.
Dr. Barrows says it's also unclear if humans have long-lasting immunity to COVID-19 after being infected. He says that makes it even less likely that would be a viable option. The Indianapolis Colts now say 4 people within the organization tested negative for COVID-19 after previously testing positive. The team closed the practice facility early this morning after the positive results, but a second set of tests came back negative and everyone was able to get back to work. However, those 4 people who have not been named were kept home today out of an abundance of caution. As of now, Sunday's Colts-Bengals game at Lucas Oil Stadium is still on. WRTV Sports' Brad Brown is covering all of this. Plus, you'll hear from Colts coach Frank Reich coming up in sports. We're trying to get you through the pandemic with information to help you thrive during this difficult time. Go to WRTV.com/coronavirus and find the CDC guidelines for Halloween, how long you can expect a COVID-19 illness to last, financial tips to survive the pandemic, and where you can turn if you need help. Again, that's WRTV.com/coronavirus. And we are getting closer to Halloween, and you can definitely tell with decorations like these up across central Indiana. It's such a gorgeous fall evening, but temperatures will fall once again. Chief Meteorologist Kevin Gregory shows us how cold it will get for Friday night football. Kevin.
In the 40s, definitely take a jacket. And I'll mention, Amanda, you showed the decorations for Halloween. Any inflatable decorations or those that can be blown around by the wind, watch out tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night, as we'll have strong winds again. Well, you see some clouds, some sunshine bursting through. We needed the sunshine, help us recover from morning low temperatures that were below freezing. This will be the last frost of the next 7 days. So although cold tomorrow morning, will really make a turn as far as temperatures are concerned. Coldest hours will last through 9 a.m. tomorrow. Wind will remain relatively light. There are your consistently cool temperatures in the mid-50s. As you look beyond, you can see what happens here. Temperatures over the evening hours will fall into the upper 40s before the games end. Frost and freeze advisory. The freeze over to the east. Anderson, Greenfield, Shelbyville, over toward Richmond, Rushville, Connorsville. You should be in the low 30s tomorrow morning. We'll talk about temperatures trending up and those rain opportunities in just a little bit.
And in Democracy 2020, well over 500,000 Hoosiers have now voted early, either in person or through mail-in voting. This is video of a long early voting line in Hendricks County today. More than 591,000 people in Indiana have voted early. This is according to numbers from the Secretary of State's office compiled by the U.S. Elections Project. The total number of votes cast so far is equal to more than 21% of the final presidential vote in Indiana in 2016. Early voting runs through November 2nd. Election Day is November 3rd. And if you can't vote in person and want to take part in absentee voting by mail, you need to file an application for an absentee ballot immediately. October 22nd is the deadline to turn in your application for a ballot. That is 6 days from now. Then when you get your absentee ballot, you must fill it out and send it back. The deadline to get that completed ballot to your election office is noon on Election Day, November 3rd. Moving to the race for the White House, we've been highlighting a number of key races for the Hoosier state tonight: Trump, Pence, and Biden-Harris. We focus on the presidential campaigns and how they view Indiana's role in the election and the key issues they believe are affecting Hoosiers. Here's WRTV's Mark Mullins.
It has been a polarizing debate for voters in this country. 4 more years for Republican Donald Trump.
We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
Or a different direction with a Democrat in the White House, Joe Biden.
You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis.
As Joe always says, this election is not just an election. It's a battle for the soul of our nation.
Where does Indiana fit into this race for the presidency? Typically a red state with patches of blue.
Indiana is Hoosier country, and they're going to be the Hoosier red come November.
We turn to each campaign, questioning how much attention is paid to the Hoosier state vying for our 11 electoral votes.
Well, Joe obviously feels that it's incredibly important to, get as many votes out of Indiana as humanly possible.
David Ziemba is the state coordinator for the Biden campaign.
Let's just say that I'm confident that we're going to do a lot better than most people think we're going to do. We've got a lot of internal polling back that suggests that we're ahead in a lot of districts and a lot of places that normally we wouldn't see that.
Indiana typically votes red.
Every state is important. To get to 270, you've got to ensure you have every state that you possibly can get.
Chris Walker with the Trump Victory campaign acknowledges a key role Indiana plays, given this place is the home of the vice president, former Governor Mike Pence.
We feel good about Indiana, but we're going to make sure with our ground game, with the Indiana Republican Party, with all of our partners, with Vice President Pence leading the way, we're confident about Indiana, but we're never going to be overconfident. We don't take anything for granted.
When we're talking about coronavirus and Indiana's response to it.
In a state that has seen more than 3,500 deaths related to COVID-19 and more than 130,000 positive cases up to this point, the handling of the coronavirus and a plan moving forward is a key issue for Hoosiers. The Trump campaign maintains the president is handling the pandemic appropriately with a more hands-off approach.
It's the beauty of federalism in a lot of ways. States can determine for themselves what the best outcome is. We've seen in states like Indiana a rebound that states like your neighboring states of Wisconsin and other states have not seen. That is a benefit compared to what we would know from Vice President Biden, who would have a national top-down mandate, which just doesn't make sense. What's happening in New York has no impact in Gary, Indiana.
Democrats behind the Joe Biden ticket say they're hearing about the issues important to Hoosier voters, and many they've polled point to the lack of leadership surrounding the spread of coronavirus.
On the presidential side and the nation side, we're hearing a lot of the fact that, the president laid down on the job and didn't do what he was supposed to do. I mean, we've got 200,000 dead Americans at his feet. That's a huge issue.
And that includes the thousands of Hoosiers who have died. The Biden campaign points out the president undercut the pandemic preparedness plan implemented during the Obama administration.
The president had a playbook. It was long, it was detailed, and he not only didn't look at it, he threw it in the trash. And that's, again, it's failed leadership at the top.
Trump's campaign says the top priority is getting people back to work.
Obviously, the number one issue is jobs in the economy, getting our economy back up and running after the Chinese coronavirus came in and just uprooted so many people's lives and livelihoods.
Biden's campaign is focusing on educating voters about polling locations, early voting options, and presenting one question.
So what we see again over and over again is the question, are you better than you were 4 years ago? And I don't think any American in this country can say right now that they are.
Both campaigns admit each of their respective candidates will most likely spend more time trying to reach voters in other key battleground states, with no special events planned here. Mark Mullins, WRTV.
You can get yourself ready for the November 3rd election by visiting WRTV.com. There we have the important deadlines you need to keep in mind, and we take an in-depth look at many of the candidates who will appear on your ballot. Just go to WRTV.com/election 2020. A massive hornet welcoming people to Beech Grove. You have to see the story behind this highly visible art piece.
High school football's regular season wraps up with what seems to be the game of the year. The Center Grove Trojans are getting loose for their matchup against Cathedral. Number 1 versus number 1, plus the latest on the Colts coming up on the news at 6.
Thank you, Brad. We'll talk about our rain chances later in the weekend and into next week. We'll do that next.
From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 6, streaming now.
Welcome back. A 21-foot tall hornet now graces the streets of Beech Grove. Relax, it isn't a real hornet, but Beech Grove has installed this stainless steel hornet on the roundabout located at Churchman Bypass and Arlington Avenue. Of course, the Beech Grove High School mascot is the Hornets, which is the inspiration for this artwork. We mentioned it's 21 feet tall, but it also sits on top of a hill, so it actually stands about 35 feet in the air. The Hornet weighs 3,500 pounds. Tonight, we spoke to the artist behind the piece.
So this is kind of new for the South Side. We've got quite a few pieces of artwork up in Carmel. So it sort of brings some of that down to Beech Grove where they deserve it. This city's a growing metropolitan area, and it's become one of the new places to live in the city, I believe. So.
Robert Buchanan has also done most of the artwork for roundabouts in Hamilton County and Speedway. Beech Grove has raised more than $55,000 in donations to make this stainless steel Hornet a reality. Kevin.
Love that. Larger than life. Well, these are colors of rainfall amounts over the next 7 days. We'll get more into that in a second. The headline this morning and again tonight, frost and freeze conditions. Carved this in the window, well, the back window of my car this morning, and that was still about 10 a.m. that the frost was hanging out. As far as our temperatures, they made a nice recovery as the sun took over and a southwest wind pushed temperatures currently to 61, as you can see in Sullivan. Otherwise, middle to upper 50s. We'll be warmer than that tomorrow after one more cold night. There's not another frosty night in the 7-day forecast. We'll be consistently warmer. In eastern Indiana, Muncie, Newcastle, Rushville, Shelbyville, Columbus, then on over toward Richmond and Connorsville, lower 30s. Otherwise, probably about 33 to 35. Notice the jump. Sunday morning's low temperature because of a lot more cloud cover, change in wind direction. It'll be a strong southwest wind during the day. That will boost our overnight temperatures as well. And you can see into Monday, still in the 40s. The chance for rain increases later Sunday. It's most likely Sunday night and Monday. Your Saturday is dry with windy conditions and temperatures in the mid-60s. Here's the map that shows you rainfall potential over the next 7 days or next week, with the Ohio River seeing the most rain, about 2 inches coming north from that. We'll see less, but this kind of hints at anywhere from ½ an inch to 1.25 inches in that stretch. Headline tomorrow, windy conditions, again gusting to 30 miles per hour or stronger as we get later in the afternoon into tomorrow night. That's out ahead of the next weather system. We'll see clouds increase through the day but stay dry. Saturday high temperature of 64 degrees in Indianapolis, 67 in Terre Haute. Eastern portion of the state, a little cooler in Richmond by about 5 degrees. Sunday, more clouds. Better chance for rain by Sunday night. Temperatures, they're still in the mid-60s, but here comes the rain Sunday night, and you'll see it start to overspread central Indiana. That's our best opportunity into Monday as well for a more widespread rainfall. Here's 7-day forecast. Still that rain around Monday. We're cooler. Temperatures back to 68 Wednesday. Shower, maybe even a thunder shower possible. And then in the 70s on Thursday. Right now, we've got a good Friday night underway, and Brad has all the latest with, I'm sure, some kids wearing coats, hopefully, for tonight's games. Brad?
Kevin, indeed, we're going to have some layers on tonight. We're going to start things off talking about the Colts. They were bundled up for practice today. The fact that they were practicing at all was a bit of a story. A whirlwind of a day started with the team complex closed early this morning. 4 positive COVID-19 tests, but the second round of tests all came back negative, so they were able to get back to work as scheduled. Week 6 against the Bengals, and Sunday's afternoon's game is on as planned. Quite the day, though. Coach Frank Reich talking to us this afternoon about his message with his guys as the day went on.
I've said this probably 3 or 4 times. Every time there's been a quote-unquote scare, you know, I use it not to wear it out, but just take a 15-second or a 30-second announcement in a meeting. Hey, guys, remember, this can happen anytime, anywhere. We don't know. We're built for this, right? Create the mindset that you're built for anything.
And high school football also being affected by some positive tests tonight. 3 games in our area postponed with positive tests on one side of the matchup. That includes HSE and Brownsburg, Franklin, Decatur Central. The Greenwood-Whiteland game was just actually postponed this morning. So those 6 teams will now look ahead to the sectionals, which start next Friday. But we'll talk about that then. Tonight, a massive game down here in Johnson County. We are here at Center Grove High School tonight. Number 1 CG in Class 6A, number 1 Cathedral in 5A. Clearly, they've been the 2 best teams in the entire state as the year has gone on. They're both 8-0. They both won big in many games, and they've both beaten some very good opponents. Well, tonight, they're going to go head-to-head. These teams won't meet in the tournament. Center Grove 6A, Cathedral 5A. They'll likely both be the favorites once the state tourney kicks off next week. Let's talk a little bit about this matchup, though. Let's start with the home team. The Center Grove Trojans come in. They've been number 1 from the very start this season. Their defense has really been what has kind of made this team cook this season. Defense has given up just 6 touchdowns in these 8 games all season, but 2 of those came last week in a game against Lawrence North when Center Grove fell behind 13-0. But Carson Steele, the senior running back, is leading that offense. They rattled off 28 straight points in that game last week on their way to that win over LN that helped them clinch the MIC championship. On the other side of the field tonight, the Cathedral Fighting Irish, they have some talented players on both sides of the ball and a ton of experience on this team. Senior-led ball club, offense and defense. Had a chance to see them against Bishop Chatard a couple of weeks ago, another #1 team, and Cathedral handled them well. Not only that, they beat 3 of the best teams from Cincinnati already this season. They beat Cincinnati St. Xavier, they beat Elder, they beat LaSalle, and both of these teams coming in have a resume that warrants being called the best team in the state. When you look at the numbers head-to-head, you got to believe we're in for quite the game here tonight. Both teams ranked 8-0. Both teams are ranked in this week's USA Today Top 25 national poll, as a matter of fact. CG 14th, Cathedral 25th. You look at the numbers, both teams scoring over 40 points a game. We'll see if this is a high-scoring affair tonight or if these defenses are what make it happen in this one. We will have full coverage of it for you coming up tonight on the news at 11. We're looking forward to seeing how this one pans out. And we'll have more from the Colts and the Bengals coming up for you on Sunday when Week 6 of the NFL season rolls around right then. So we got some layers on. We're going to enjoy this one here tonight. We hope you have a great Friday night as well. We'll see you back here at 11. Time for another break. We're back to the studio to wrap up our Friday edition of the News at 6. Next.
Lower 30s to start the day tomorrow. By 9 to 10, we'll start to work our way into the 40s. Afternoon temperatures in the lower 60s, but Amanda, that will be tempered a bit by the strong wind.
Thank you for making WRTV your choice for news. Join us again for the news at 7.